Good morning, guys. So this is going to be part 2 of the she shed build, shed to studio space conversion. As you can see, we've been doing a little bit of work in here. My wife and I both were in here doing a little bit of sanding on the drywall, getting the first coat of paint on. So this is just going to be picking back up and starting where we left off. Basically what's going to happen in this video is we're going to be trimming out all the windows, the door. We're going to be doing some trim along the ceiling. We're going to be doing baseboards. The boys are very excited. Oh my gosh. Back up, back up, back up. So we're going to be doing baseboards. Once we get, we have to go get some more paint. If you notice, that space doesn't look like it's painted as well. That's going to end up being behind counter space, cabinets. So I think what we decided is we're going to end up doing just built-ins, and basically it's going to be one side and the other side will end up being kind of either cabinets with shelves or drawers. We haven't decided yet. And then the middle is going to be open. And then there will be a countertop here, so that if my wife wants to put a stool here and sit and like work on the countertop, she can do that. So going to be going to Home Depot probably later today to get some of the trimming stuff and get another gallon of paint, and then we will continue from there. So thanks for watching, thanks for tuning in. Let's get to work. All right, so I made it to Home Depot this morning, and I basically got all the trim pieces for the windows, for the floorboard, for the quarter round for the ceiling, and then some common wood, they call it, which is basically just untreated pine to use for the window casings. So I'm going to get started on this stuff. I have the saw set up in the shop, which you can see right there. So basically what I'm gonna have to do is I'm gonna have to cut these pieces down. So the casing is gonna be, let me show you real quick. This piece is already cut to 4 feet, so it's already the right size. So the casing is the wood that goes around the inside of the window frame, I guess, to basically give you a nice presentation to the window out to the trim. So this needs to be cut so that it's flush with the wall. So I'm going to get some measurements, and then I'm going to go and run all these through, and then I can start tacking them in. And then once that's done, I take the window trim pieces, which are these here, and then those will go on the outside. So you cut basically 45s and run them around. So I'm going to get to it. All right, so the casings are done. I'm going to go and I'm going to put a little bit of caulking on the seams and the nail holes, so that when we get ready to paint this, it'll be dry. So I'm also putting a bead against the window. And then once the trim goes on, you'll also put some caulking on the 45 cuts of the trim. And then just use your finger to clean everything up. Make it relatively smooth. And I did cut these too short. I don't know how I got my measurement off by a ½ inch, but I just put another filler piece in there, so which is fine. Once it has the caulking and it's painted, you won't even really notice. All right, let me go ahead and get these finished up. I'm not going to make you watch the whole thing. Really, Jerry? This is not your space. Yeah? Just move along. All right, so now that I have the window casings done and the caulking done, I'm going to do the same thing around the doorway. I have this piece of 1x8 that I'm basically going to just cut into strips because I only have to fill about 1 inch of space right here so that it'll meet the trim piece going around. So let me get those cut up and installed. All right, the framing is done around the door, and what I'm doing now is starting to cut the molding. The molding can be a little tricky. You got to make sure that you get your 45s going the right way. So I usually just do this piece by piece, and it also gives you a more exact measurement if you actually put the piece on, and then like for the top piece, I'll actually put a piece up there and I'll mark it rather than measuring it with a tape measure, just so it's more accurate. So I'm gonna go ahead and put these sides on. I'll get the top piece cut and measured and then get that on. Another thing that is important is you want to get your spacing on here. So the trim will actually be roughly about 1/4 inch back. So about in the middle of this piece of wood. And you want to get something, in this case, I'm going to use this square. So I'm going to basically just put it like this with the ruler like that. And then I'm going to put my pen here and I'm going to run it up and down so that I get an even line from top to bottom. All right, so the trim is done now on both doors. And I think that this door is something's gonna happen with it. I'm not sure if we're gonna just replace it. So all of this may end up getting torn out. I mean, I hope not. But at the very least, my wife said that she wanted to split the doors so that the bottom could be closed and just the top could be open, if she wants to keep the dogs out but still get a breeze. So that may be a modification that's done down the road. Yeah, we'll see. So all of the trim and everything is done on the doors. So now I'm going to trim out the windows, and then that'll be done. And then it'll be ready for a coat of paint, probably the last coat of paint. Like we already put 1 coat on, so I think 1 more will be good. And then we have to, we actually do need to paint this middle spot, because when we build the countertop here, it's going to have either shelves or drawers on both sides, and then there's going to be an opening in the middle. So I'll get to it. Okay, so the windows are all done. Everything has caulking on it, on the corners and the nail holes. The next thing I'm going to get started on is putting the quarter round up. That is where the drywall and the tongue and groove cedar meet. I'm basically going to do 45s at the corners. So this can get a little tricky because you got to pay attention to the way that you're cutting it so that the half rounds come together. And really this should be a compound cut because there is a slope on the roof, but I'm just going to do 45s and get it as close as I can, because that's too much math that I don't want to figure out right now. So I'm going to get started on putting those up, and basically all the way around the room. Okay, so all the quarter round is done. Everything is caulked. the seams against the wall. I didn't do caulking against the cedar, so that's just open. That way it kind of looks like it's laying on the molding. So that's all done. Windows are all done, doors are all done. So now we are getting ready to start painting. So we will get that knocked out. So Sunday morning, all the paint looks pretty good. We of course still have to do this wall here. When we painted last night, we basically got around to this corner, and then all the trim is going to need some touch up as well. So where the wood was, you can kind of still see, you know, through. So this is all going to get a second coat today. So we're going to work on that, getting all the paint finished up, and then going to get started on the floor. This is the flooring that we got. 100% waterproof, pet friendly, stain resistant. This is basically LVP, or luxury vinyl planking they call it. Rigid core flooring. It's kind of a grayish with some blue sort of hints in it. So that's what we're going to be putting on. Oh, hi, Hottie. All right, so everything is cleaned up. When you're doing this flooring, you want to make sure that you have, you know, everything is clean, obviously. You don't want to have anything sticking up, rocks, lumps, whatever. Since I'm putting this on a slab, I'm not going to be putting any kind of an underlayment. So you can use an underlayment if you're in a house that has basically wood subflooring. Underlayment might be good because you'll get creaking, you know, of the wood. But most luxury vinyl planking has a, you know, a rubber pad on the bottom, and then it varies depending, you know, on the brand and the price, and it comes in different thicknesses. So the way this works though is there's a protruding edge on one side, and then and hanging over edge on the other side, I guess is the easiest way to explain it. And then they kind of lock together. And then the same with the ends. So when you're doing this, it's fairly simple. You just got to kind of get your routine down, and then you're basically snapping the pieces together. So when you put them together, you put them together kind of at an angle, and as you lay them flat, it'll actually kind of click together. And the way that it's set up, the way that you snap the pieces together, you have to start in one corner or the other. So in this case, I'm going to start in this corner over here. So it's the opposite corners because the way the pieces go together. So I could start in this corner, or I could start in that corner over there. But I'm going to start in this one. And typically when you're running flooring, you want to run parallel to whatever the longest wall is. That's the normal, I guess the standard way to do it. I mean, really you can do it any way you want, but generally for most efficient use of your pieces, you want to run parallel to the longest wall because that's the shape of the planks. And the way this is going to start, I'm going to start with full pieces and go all the way to the end, and then see where I end up, and I'll have to cut that piece. And then what I'm going to do for my pattern is I'm going to cut this into thirds basically. So I'll have one full piece for this row, the first row, and then I'm going to do 1/3, I'm going to do a cut. And then the thing you have to watch on this is you want to cut it on the opposite side of what you're thinking, right? So if the third cut's going to be over here, I want to cut a third from this side so that the cut edge will be under the baseboard. You can't cut here because then you're not going to be able to cut, you're not going to be able to connect to the next piece of planking. So you always have to have your cut edge is going to be to the outside. Same as when you get over to here, on this side, the cut edge would be, you'd be going this way and cut it here, if that makes sense. So you always have to have interlocking edges touching each other, and all the cut edges will be basically against this wall and against this wall. And then we will have to get a threshold for this. We did not buy that, but I can add that after. And a threshold basically is going to be like a metal piece. It's going to be just like the threshold on the doorway here. So it's going to get mounted over top of the vinyl planking. You screw down into the concrete with the proper anchors and screws, and then just screw it in. And then there's like usually a rubber piece that goes over where the screws are to hide it, and also is like a crush seal for the door. So I'm gonna get started on this, and it should go pretty quick. This is probably the easiest job you could do for this vinyl flooring, because it's just a rectangle. So there's no crazy cuts, you're not going around anything. Should be really easy. See, that only took about 20 seconds. That was tiring. And when I say this is easy, it's not super easy. In principle, it's easy, but as you're putting stuff together, you know, you're clicking in a piece over here, and then like a piece over here could come off a little. So you always have to kind of keep an eye on your previous pieces that you put together so that everything kind of stays tight. I'm on the last row here, and basically what I'm doing is I'm just running a piece through the table saw to take it down. That's about a 4-inch width that's left over. And this is what is considered a floating floor, they call it. So you do not go all the way to the wall. So you usually go anywhere from a 1/4 inch to a 1/2 inch from the wall, depending on what kind of baseboard you're using. You know, you want to make sure that your baseboard, of course, is going to cover. And then, yeah, this is what they consider a floating floor. And I never really understood that, because as soon as you put furniture on it, it's not really floating. But what they're talking about is the flooring actually expands and contracts a little bit as it heats up and cools down. So you're giving it room to expand and contract, basically, is what it is. But this looks pretty sweet. I mean, we're very close now. I just got to get this last piece, last strip done, and then start putting on the baseboards, and then we'll be pretty much done. And I also wanted to explain what I was talking about when I said I was doing a 1/3 pattern. So if you can see here, you see there's a cut, a cut, a cut, and then it just keeps repeating itself, right? So this is a 48-inch piece of the vinyl planking, so it made easy measurements. So basically 16 inches, 32 inches, 48 inches, just like your beams on your wall, 16-inch on center. So when I started the next row, I basically cut a 16-inch piece, put it in there, and then there's full piece, full piece, full piece. And then the next one was a 32-inch piece, there was a full piece, and then a 16-inch piece. So it actually ended up being about 15. So this was almost a perfect measurement for that, you know, 16-inch planking. It was about 1 inch short, roughly. So this ended up getting, all the pieces were 1 inch shorter than, you know, full piece or 16 or 32. But that's what I meant as far as doing your pattern, because you want to stagger it so that it doesn't look. So now you see 2 full sets. So you see like a step, 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 step. And then you want to continue that through your whole floor, just so it looks a little more random, and not like, you don't want to put all your pieces so that there's a line going across and a line going across, line going across. Just makes it look better. And also it helps the floor actually lock in better, because you're alternating all the seams. So yeah, let me get this last one done. All right, so I'm getting started on the baseboards. These are just simple 1/4 inch by 2 inch baseboards, they might be 1/2 inch. But just smooth baseboards. There's no like kind of lines or designs on them. And baseboards are really simple. You basically just set them in place and nail them in. You do 45s on the corners like that, if you can see. So basically the next piece coming over from here is going to join up with that one, and then you will end up doing the caulking on it anyway. So, and it's that simple. So like this one over here, I just cut, and you pretty much, like I said, you just set it in place and then nail it in. So let me get these finished up. All right guys, well, I think that's gonna wrap up the video for the she shed part 2. If you wanna take a look. Yeah, let me flip around the camera. All right, so I have all the baseboards on. I did the caulking on the nail holes and along the top. There's one short piece here because where those spaces are is where the built-in cabinets will be. So eventually there will be a part 3 to this series. But yeah, everything's done. The part 3 will be putting in the countertop, putting in the built-in cabinets, and then my wife wants a couple shelves up here as well. So all the outlet covers are on, light switch. Yeah, looks pretty awesome. She turned out, you know, she's happy with how it turned out. Of course, I see like all the stuff that could have been done better, you know. But yeah. So yeah, there's definitely room for improvement, but I'm not a drywall guy. I'm not really like a finishing guy. I can do it and it looks pretty good, but it's definitely not like professional grade. You know, the old saying, caulking and paint will make a carpenter what he ain't. So that's gonna wrap up this video, part 2 of the she shed. I think it turned out pretty good. Overall, I think we spent, I wanna say maybe about $1,800, maybe two grand. Because all the drywall was probably like $400. The flooring I think was about $500. The tongue and groove cedar I think was about $400. Then all the trim was a couple $100. So yeah, it was probably pretty close to $2,000 that we spent on this for this upgrade. But we went from a tool shed to a completely finished out room. So, oh yeah, and also the lights and everything. So yeah, it was probably right around 2 grand or just under, which is not bad. I mean, for materials, you know, I did everything myself. And then my wife helped with some of the painting and sanding of the drywall and whatnot. So yeah, turned out good. She likes it. So now I can get back to working on my shop. She's always coming up with things to stop me working on my shop. Not intentionally, she just wants to get other stuff done too. And my shop's been taking forever. All right, I'll see you guys on the next video. Aloha.